Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again to another Fallout 4 settlement build. Today we're going to be checking out the hotel, or inn, whichever you prefer. And this building is actually our first two-story one in the Starlight Drive-In settlement. And I must admit, trying to piece everything together for a build like this was really sort of a fun challenge on its own. But this time around we're going to be using a couple more mods, which I'll be linking down in the description. The first out of the two is the Busy Settlers mod, which just allows you to place down a carpet, which your settlers can stand on and just do cool creative things like read a newspaper or drink some coffee. And the other mod that we're using now is called the Homemaker Expanded, and it adds a large variety of new placeable items such as candles, clocks, these mafia guy cutouts, and the list really does go on and on. But yeah, hopefully by seeing this, if you're building your own settlement, maybe this will give you some inspiration or even some new ideas on things you could try for your own builds. Okay guys, so now we can go ahead and take a closer look at the build, and like I said, you can call it an inn or a hotel, whatever you fancy. Personally, I think I would rather have it just be a hotel, because this building here is mainly just meant for housing people and giving them a room to stay in, whereas I feel a inn is generally more for not only doing that, but also, providing its customers with some food as well. But unfortunately, throughout my playthrough, I haven't seen that many hotels. I think the only one I've stumbled across was the Hotel Rexford, and out of all the mods I have installed, I haven't seen any hotel signs, so that was kind of a bummer. Aside from that though, I did try and make the outside of the build look as lively as possible, and in order to do that, I tried to make sure everything was lit, including the signs and whatnot, just to make sure everything had a nice kind of friendly atmosphere that was very welcoming. Speaking of the signs though, as you can see, we do have the Dugout Inn sign. Don't tell Diamond City, but we did steal it. But even that is kind of illuminated by the barrel next to it. Other than that, there's a lot of seating. I tried to make sure all of the walls were covered so they didn't look too boring. There's even a milk machine lying out, along with some other mafia cutouts, which I think really just kind of add to the mood of the build, and in the end kind of gives it a nice old-timey feeling. But yeah guys, as for the exterior, that's pretty much it. I'll make sure and show you guys the second floor balcony once we head on inside though, but for now, let's go check out the interior. And yes, for those of you wondering, I am dressed up as Mr. Burke from Fallout 3 right now. Speaking of him in the city of Megaton though, one of my main sources of inspiration when creating this building was actually Moriarty's Saloon. And of course, that's a saloon and this is a hotel, but I just really always loved the atmosphere going into that place, so I tried to incorporate a lot of the elements from that into this build here. And you'll even notice some rooms like this one over to the right are really reminiscent of where, for instance, you first see Mr. Burke, or even this place back here, which is the owner's room, is really similar to the one Moriarty would use to sleep in. But other than that, to kind of fill up all the walls and just make this place look lived in, I really tried to make it look almost as if it was sort of a nice place to vacation. That's why there's all these posters that kind of symbolize what Boston was and everything. And you can see, other than that, just to make it look like this place could be a somewhat decent area to spend the night in, there are a lot of little lounge areas. For instance, this one over here to the left, which has a radio and just a lot of other details to almost give it a cozy feeling, but it still does have that kind of, I don't know, how would you say it? Uncomfortable, wastelandy, post-apocalyptic feel. I think that's the best way to put it. And there's also this big giant row of these lockers, which, depending on what you like, this could either be maybe a lost and found, or just a general storage area for maybe the residents to, throw any extra goods that they couldn't fit in the room in. Other than that, for the main lobby area, we also have this front desk, which obviously the customers would come to either rent a room or maybe buy one for the long term, depending on which one they would prefer. And further back here we have the owner's room, like I said before, and once again, this was really inspired by Moriarty's Saloon. You can see we have his terminal there, which I'm sure a lot of you probably hacked into at least once or twice. And there's also a lot of these filing cabinets over to the right, which I presume would just kind of house a lot of paperwork or just notes on maybe the residents who came to stay here, and maybe just some financial records, who knows. And then over to the left side here, It's a bit more, I guess, personal items or just general stuff to make the room look a bit nicer and enjoyable for the most part. You can see there's some posters. This one here says something about volunteering for the draft. So maybe you could imagine that the owner of this place is a ghoul who lived all the way back before the war and was really into sort of military stuff, and that's why he has this thing here. And all the way to the left we have his bedroom, and there's a couple decorations in there and also a big safe that he would be able to store any of his personal belongings in. And now moving on to the final area of the first floor, you might notice that this is where things start to quiet down just a bit, since it is right next to the stairs that lead up to all the main bedrooms and whatnot. And it's also quite a bit more separated from the radio, unlike the other seating arrangement areas on the first floor. And also here in the back we have another little lounge area where maybe a quiet chem deal would go down. And also off to the other side there's a lot of nice atmospheric kind of moody lighting made by the candles, which I think in the end really kind of helped the whole look and feel of this final hallway. And now moving upstairs, you'll see for the first time ever in our settlement we have a restroom. So we'll go ahead and check this thing out really quick. And you can imagine that in the wasteland or post-apocalyptic world, the bathrooms would not be the most pleasant place. So that's why the one you see here is really kind of trashed. And you'll notice there's a broken mirror off to the right, and there's a plunger just jammed into the toilet. Probably not the best place for that to be, but it's there. And also at the end of the hallway, there's a cool little table with some nice pre-war artifacts, and also a comfy seat off to the side where maybe someone could quietly read a book. And now moving on to the final part, to the inside, you'll see to the right that there's a cool table where maybe a friend and his buddy could share a beer, and this is placed right on the balcony that kind of overlooks the lobby, so it's got a cool view and everything. And there's also all of these rooms over to the left-hand side, and the first room here, I tried to make it look as if it was the cheapest out of the three, and then the price kind of moves up as you go to the right. So you'll notice in some there's a hairbrush or two, or a suitcase lying on the ground, or in others maybe a box of Nuka-Cola for someone to sit and enjoy. And then the last room here is kind of the most expensive out of the three, and I've tried to make it look as if maybe whoever's staying here is actually here for a good long while. And I tried to show that by throwing a bunch of clothing around and piling tons and tons of suitcases everywhere, just to make it seem as if they had a lot of luggage and they were really here to stay for as long as they desired. And that just about does it for the inside of the hotel, but I did tell you guys that I would show you the upstairs balcony, so we'll go ahead and check this out right now. Overall, I think it's just a pretty cool vantage point for settlers to come and just kind of enjoy the view. That is, if they enjoy looking at dead trees or the occasional death claw that passes by. But anyways guys, that'll just about do it for today. I will admit this build here was quite a bit harder to kind of fill out and just in general create, just because it had so much more space, and even just getting that balcony and the first floor deck to kind of piece together properly was a challenge on its own. But yeah, overall, I had a really fun time building it. I think the more challenging the builds are, the more enjoyable they become once they're done. But that being said, I think it still needs just a little bit more work to make it seem a bit more lived in and lively. So if you guys have any sort of ideas on how I could make that possible, feel free to let me know. And also in terms of suggestions, if you guys have any ideas for future builds and whatnot, I would love to hear those. You know, getting a nice variety of different ideas is really what I think will make this settlement stand out in the end. But if you guys don't have any suggestions, I was thinking maybe we could do some sort of a music bar. I noticed the new mod I got has a lot of stuff that could make that work, so let me know what you think about that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the build, and I just want to thank you all for watching, and like always, I will see you in the next one.